All right, great. So we are at the 11 o'clock hour here in Pacific time. I'm dialing in from San Francisco. And for those of you who I haven't met yet on these virtual events, I'm Morgan. I run our marketing team at Blueboard. And we're so excited to have all of you with us today for such an important topic. We'll be talking through how to create an authentic connection across your team, with yourself, with everyone at the company, even while we've been working remote. So we'll jump in and start to do some speaker introductions. We'll have all of our speakers give a little bit of background on their company, what they're up to, ultimately why this topic was really interesting to them, what they're passionate about specifically when thinking about authentic connections. So we'll go ahead and kick it over to Hakimia first. Welcome so much and thanks for being with us.
Hi everyone, I am located in Houston, Texas. I've seen some Texans come through. But I'm originally from Tampa, Florida. I also seen some Floridians as well join the webinar. So welcome. I am a culture strategist and executive coach. I partner with Bravely to support my leaders in whatever they're experiencing, big or small. Some of the common themes that our leaders experience relate to relationship management, building those connections and authentic relationships. Career management, performance management, just an array of different topics that leaders and professionals such as yourself seek bravely. I'm a part of a global team of coaches, actually, all across the world, from Australia, Israel, South America, that provide the on-demand access to coaches for over 30,000 employees globally at companies such as Pinterest, Zillow, Autodesk, and many, many more. Why I believe this topic is important specifically for today is for all you techies out there, you know this, we're in this fourth industrial revolution. And so what that means is we're in a world where volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity is the norm. And for some people, they can't really stand firm in this environment. And so they're challenged. And what happens when individuals are challenged, for some, they isolate themselves and it's hard for them to really stay connected because they're trying to manage it all. Everything is blurring all together. It's hard for them to really differentiate their realities. So I think building authentic connections is very important because, for one, it keeps you grounded. For two, it also, with the individuals around you, your team, it builds that trust and rapport needed so that you can continue to maintain a high level of engagement as well as productivity within the workplace. So thank you guys so much for your listening ear, and I'm just excited to share this information that we have here today.
Thank you so much, Hakimia. And next we have Shannon. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. I'm Shannon. I'm the head of people at Blueboard. I work closely with Morgan, and I'm really thrilled to be here with both Hakimia and Dan for reasons that you already just saw on beautiful display. Hakimia is such a pro. Dan's product is really about connecting people together, and we're all just really passionate about the reality that at work, we have a lot of relationships, and those relationships impact all of our lives. So as leaders, as managers, as HR folks, and in any position that you're in a company, potentially even just like as a culture carrier for your team, helping people find ways to connect and relate to each other and to bring their true and whole selves into the interactions at work helps ensure that your team is smoother functioning, that people are feeling fulfilled by the interactions that they're having with their colleagues, and ultimately, really acknowledging what Hakimia said. While we're living in this time that is filled with stress and anxiety and uncertainty, it provides a foundation. It provides a safe place for people to be throughout the day while they're navigating all these other challenges. So I'm pumped to talk about this. I'm pumped to be on the line with our team here, and I'm really excited for your questions and ideas and to share our ideas with you.
Thank you so much, Shannon, and we'll pass it over to Dan. Welcome.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Mannion, co-founder and CEO of Donut. We make a a set of products that help teams get better connected and build stronger relationships. So I'm really excited to be here and talk about this topic. We've been passionate about this at Donut for years, and it's really our mission to help people connect. But I think, as the others have mentioned, the world kind of threw us a big curveball a few months ago, and now that we're all remote, everything is even more challenging and even more important in terms of how we build relationships and stay connected with each other. So I'm really excited to talk both about why it's so important, but then also really tangibly how we can accomplish some of these things while we're still remote, because a lot of the familiar ad hoc ways of doing it around the office, around the water cooler, have just sort of evaporated in the current climate. So I'm excited to talk about ways that we can do those things a little bit more deliberately while remote.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan, Shannon, and Hakimi. I'm so happy to have you here today to go through all the great dialogue and fresh ideas that we'll be sharing. And then again, just by introduction, I'm Morgan. I run our marketing team here at Blueboard. And just to build on what the others have shared, one of our values, company values specifically, is build meaningful relationships. So at Blueboard, we've been very mindful of that and thinking of really awesome ways to adapt our culture as we've gone remote to continue to amplify that value specifically, which ties so closely to authentic connection. So later on, Shannon will be sharing some of the programs that we've developed, and I can't wait to have her share those with you. So we'll move ahead. Also on the line, just to note, we have Alex and Lisa. Lisa's with the Bravely team. Alex is with Donut. They will be my partners in crime to help answer any questions you have on the chat as we go through the content. So thanks to both of those ladies as well for all your help getting our webinar produced today. So looking at a quick agenda, we've covered welcome and intros. Next up, we'll be talking a little bit about why we're here today. What is the power of connections? How do they influence motivation, performance, engagement? So we'll be hearing from Dan on that section specifically. And then we'll be rolling into all three speakers who have some awesome program ideas that you can implement at your own companies, as well as some audience questions that came through to guide the conversation. So you might see your name in lights coming up in a few slides. And then lastly, we'll talk a little bit about how to put that into practice starting today, and really having the opportunity to evaluate some of the current perks or incentive budgets that you might have on the table that made a lot of sense for our in-office environment that might be ripe to tap into when thinking about shifting your perks or opportunities to build connections in our now remote work environment. So that will be our flow for the day. At the end, we'll be able to share our SHRM PDC. So for those of you focused on continuing education with SHRM, that credit will be available as we wrap up. And that's when we'll also be able to take live Q&A. So on the note of housekeeping, our lines will be muted, but we do welcome you to ask questions through the Q&A module, which you'll see in the black Zoom bar on your screen. You can also raise questions and ask conversation or ask ideas through chat. A few of you are already doing a great job of toggling to share comments with all panelists and attendees. That's a great way, again, to share ideas, ask questions. We'll be also doing our best to answer some of those questions live as we go through the content. Otherwise, for those who might need to drop early, a few of you have asked if the session will be recorded. Yes, it will be. We'll also be able to share the slides and the recording packaged into a recap that will be emailed out to everybody who registered next week. So for any case you have to drop early, not to worry, all the content will be shared straight to your inbox in just a few days. Perfect. All right, let's jump forward and we will pass it over to Dan, who's going to share a little bit of that, why we're here, why this topic is so important for all of us today. Take it away, Dan.
Thanks, Morgan. So a little bit about why we're here first, sort of at a high level, and then some statistics about why it matters so much. So I don't have to tell everybody that the work world has changed. We're all living a very different existence now, and I think we've gone from the sort of like abrupt, almost panicked, how do we do this phase to, okay, how do we make this new normal work? And I think some of the big trends that we've been seeing are, while on some level, I know for our team, we actually are quite productive from home. So we actually, some teams I think maybe have seen a productivity boost. On the flip side, there's increased loneliness, isolation. It's harder to form new relationships. So there's this sort of downside to this remote work, that a bunch of things that we took for granted, like developing an impromptu coaching or mentor relationship because you see each other every day in the office, or just how was your weekend chats when you walk in, you know, on a Monday morning. Those things have just disappeared. So I think we're here today to talk about what are ways that we can get more deliberate about fostering community around creating connections. So if we want to, yeah, so here are some of the reasons why this really matters. And I'll talk about this both from sort of the employee level and then at the company level. There are tons of stats around why this matters for employees, but a couple of them here are, number one, employees with a best friend are 7 times more likely to be engaged. If you've been working at your organization for a long time, you may already have that best friend, but think about new employees joining a company, how much harder it's going to be to find those friends, find your network when you join. So how do we help people do things like that? Another statistic is around happiness. So the increased happiness of having authentic connections at work can be equivalent to as much as a $100,000 raise a year. So that's a huge and really, really powerful lever if you can foster that in your organization. And then what that adds up to at the company level is that companies with engaged employees actually outperform organizations that don't have engaged employees by a lot, 202% to be specific. So this really matters from the happiness level, from the engagement level, and then from the company performance level.
Great. So as we transition, Hakimia will add a little bit here, but ultimately Dan did a great job of setting up the data surrounding what the impact of connections can be. But how do we start to think about authentic connections and what that can actually mean when thinking about our own business? I'll pass it over to you, Hakimia. Sorry, Hakimia, I think you're on mute.
I was excited
Perfect.
to start, right?
Yes.
So, you know, I think we have to first take a step back to define what does connection look like. Like Dan stated before, it's in the office, it looks different than working remotely. So connection obviously is the opposite of isolation, but it's defined as something linked or associated with one another, you know, in a relationship. Connection is the bond between two people. And obviously it's quite hard to establish that now that we're working from home, but there are ways. Authentic connection is when we connect with other people by sharing and establishing what we have in common, or the way that our differences make us unique and yet bring us together because of the willingness to understand and accept our differences. So during those times where, you know, you think about what do I need to do to connect, just opening up the door to create opportunities from a team perspective to share commonalities, or maybe even building it as a guiding principle within the organization. So what creates the atmosphere for authentic connection? It first starts in the brain. The brain actually gives us permission to build that connectivity with someone. So the research on the human brain suggests that when we meet someone, our brain scans all the possibilities or the information that we need to say, you know what, this person is trustworthy to establish a relationship with. Essentially, it's identifying that psychological safety. Google did some research on this, and you can actually look it up, where it suggests that the highest performing teams have in common is that psychological safety, the ability to share ideas without, you know, being judged or any retaliation. So most importantly, I want you guys to remember that, you know, we connect by sharing ourselves and being willing to make the other person feel significant. I know it's hard during these times because we have a lot coming at us, but when we look outside of ourselves and we seek an opportunity to make others feel significant, that creates the bonds. So for example, I had a coaching client with one of my executives through Bravely, and you know, he felt like his boss didn't hear him. during meetings, during their Zoom meetings. They didn't acknowledge him or his ideas, and he just felt disregarded. I'm pretty sure some of you guys may feel the same at times when you're not acknowledged, or maybe when your team leader doesn't check in. So creating those opportunities to acknowledge someone, and then to encourage that engagement, even when there's silence, is a way of connecting with your teams. So I think now I am passing it over to Shannon. All right.
Yeah, well, actually, take a pause there. That was a great setup. Thanks again to both Dan and Hakimia. So a little bit of the qualitative, a little bit of the quantitative, right? So I'm feeling really good about what we're here to do today. And Hakimia, I loved this notion of like, it starts with the brain. You have to really mentally be in the space to make those connections. And it does require a little bit more work when we're remote, right? Because you have to maybe seek people out or make it a little bit more formal if you're requesting time from someone, but at the end of the day, it's important to make the time to do that.
Yeah, I like to say, you have to be intentional during these times. Gone are the days, obviously, we can get up and grab some coffee. Be intentional, but that intention goes a long way, as you can see with what Dan shared. It may, in fact, be that one act that helps someone stay within an organization.
Absolutely. So as we transition into our next section, this is where we get to shed some light on some real programs that the teams have produced. These are great places to ask questions in the chat. We'll do our best to maybe pause the panelist and ask those questions to give a little bit more color if you'd like them, but ultimately some exciting practical examples that you can intend to emulate or replicate at your own company as you wish. So I'll pass it over to Shannon, who's going to get us started on mentorship.
Thanks, Morgan. I'm just so excited to talk through all of these ideas. I feel like Dan and Hakimia have provided the why and the sort of like psychological how. And I'm here with the what. Like, what are some things that you can actually do inside your own company or with your own team? So the first one I want to talk through is a program that we are, still building at Blueboard. I would say it's a work in progress, but I truly love it because it's employee-led. It was something that came from one of our leaders on our team and started on a sort of specific smaller team and went so well as a pilot that we are building it into something larger that the rest of the team can enjoy and experience. So this first idea I have for you is to create a formal mentorship program, but don't be afraid. The formality can actually be pretty basic. You just have to provide a little bit of structure so that people know what they're doing. The idea is that with a mentorship program, you'll connect rising leaders with some of your more tenured leaders or more experienced folks. And in facilitating those one-on-one relationships, you are going to help those folks build meaningful connection with one another. But I think also during this time where we're all sort of grappling with like, what's next? Where am I? What am I doing? Together, they can sort of paint a vision for the future. There are all of these outcomes with a mentorship program, which I'm skipping down to the bottom here, but by building a relationship, you kind of get this accountability partner. You can say like, I have a goal, I have a dream, I have an idea, and someone says, how's that going? Did you work toward that this week? What have you been thinking about related to that goal? And suddenly that meaningful connection or that relationship that you're building starts being able to parlay into progress, into steps toward what you're trying to achieve in your lives. So the couple things I want to comment on first here is over on the right side, I have two pictures, right? The mentorship program, these are all Blueboarders here in these pictures, by the way, but the mentorship program can feel a little bit like you are, jumping off a ledge together, right? Like you're kind of holding on to each other and it's not totally clear who's mentoring who. That's definitely my experience. I am technically the mentor, but every now and then, I get off those mentor calls and I think, I'm pretty sure she's teaching me more than I'm teaching her, because as our relationship grows, we're sharing more. I'm getting a lot of ideas from the person that I'm mentoring, and I'm sharing my ideas too. And so we're both on this journey together, and we're kind of just holding on, and we know that we're just sort of a team in the mentoring. So I say that all to maybe remove any barriers to like people who are saying, I don't know if I'm ready to be a mentor. I don't know if I'm experienced enough. I don't know if I have something to add. Mentoring is really just about having a framework to talk about what you'd like to achieve. So our advice for how to set it up and how to make it work: pair some mentors and mentees together. You can get really detailed in the way that you match folks. You can have a specific bent toward getting people who are from across the organization, different teams, so that there's insight into different areas. Or you can have people who are on the same team, someone who's at a senior level and someone who's more at a junior level. You might do some personality tests like doing the Myers-Briggs or DISC, or even Crystal Knows, something where you can sort of see how people operate and how they might work well together. But the bottom line is you want to get folks who are committed to doing the mentor program, and you want people who feel like, oh, I think I could see some value in participating in this. And you don't have to start with everybody. You can start small. The next piece of advice is provide a few structured sessions. At the beginning, it can be hard for people to jump in and know how to have a conversation. So provide a little bit of framework. Maybe the first session is just, some guided get to know you questions. Maybe the next session is a little bit deeper. It's about experiences that you've had at the office, or, goals that you might have for your life. But the bottom line is, if you set up a cadence, maybe it's weekly, maybe it's bi-weekly, and you provide structure for the first few times, people pick up on it. Those connections get developed, and then they'll continue to meet regularly, and they can kind of set their own agenda and set their own schedule. So what can you look forward to as you do this? I mentioned at the bottom the idea of accountability and the idea that the partners can work toward goals. Another element that I think is really great is new connections can be unlocked. And by that, I mean, sometimes the mentor wouldn't know that the mentee has an interest in a specific area, but they've got someone in their more developed network that they can say, hey, I'd love to introduce you to so-and-so. Why don't you have a conversation with them? So it's not always just the one-to-one relationship. The one-to-one relationship can expand out and involve each person's network. Speaking to both what Hakimia and Dan talked about before, the idea of sort of building trust in a trusting relationship with mentors and mentees, there's more opportunity for feedback, and that feedback is better received because there's already psychological safety. And so there's an opportunity for growth through that. And finally, the ultimate outcome we're looking for here is increased engagement with the overall organization, because people feel connected, and a sense of belonging. I am a part of something here that is special. So that is my few tips on building a mentorship program. I present them in this loose way because I do think it's really accessible, but can sound scary to launch. And so for us, I just want to say that we sort of dragged our feet for a little while, like, oh, are we going to? Is this the right time? Like, will people want to do it? It's been just a great success. And I think really that's because of how much people love the connections they're making.
And I wanted to pause just briefly. There's been a ton of dialogue happening while you've been presenting, which is great. Some cool insights that the audience is surfacing. The notion of branding. So Chelsea, for example, shared that they run a mentor program, but changed the name to Dialogue Partners because it felt a little bit of a less pressure situation than framing it as something as formal as mentorship. So that was an interesting tidbit that Chelsea shared. And then Martha also does a little bit of a broader group. They have what's called crew regattas, and it's a person kind of moderating conversation with 5 of their peers. They meet, it looks like about monthly, and then kind of depend from there, but it's a space for peers to get together to knowledge share and kind of support each other, also in a little bit of a less formal structure. So just wanted to call both of those out. I thought they were interesting, and wanted to thank the audience for all the dialogue that was happening behind the scenes.
I wanted to add one more thing. I saw someone suggested using the Clifton Strengths as a way to match. I just want to like strong vote. Strengths Finder is really cool. It's a really great tool for sort of generating a foundation for a conversation that is based on what you're already good at and building on it, as opposed to some of the more like, oh, I'm not sure I'm great at this. And so just recommend people check that out. Thanks for that idea, Desha.
Yeah, Shannon, you're right. It's all about moving forward, creating that forward momentum. I'll talk a little bit about that too in the presentation. That's the whole benefit of coaching. It's we're looking forward instead of backwards.
Love it. I think I'm ready for the next slide, Morgan. Thanks. So we got a question early on about the reality that as we are all working remotely, time zones become an issue. You're not all in the same place. As Hakimia said, you can't go grab a coffee. And furthermore, you know, it may be morning where you are and night where someone else is. So how do we address building connection in that reality? I got a few ideas. The sort of headline here is you've got to use those asynchronous tools. You can't expect everybody to be in the same room at the same time. So what are the things that you're doing that allow for interaction and in fact cultivate interaction that doesn't have to be simultaneous? And sort of taking that to the next level is we've found at Blueboard that when you really seek to empower leaders from within your organization as your cultural ambassadors, you get this sort of army of folks who are also initiating connections. It's not just, you know, one person's job. It can't be your diversity, inclusivity, belonging person. It can't be just your HR person. It can't be just your employee engagement person. Everybody has to take part in creating opportunities and building sort of those moments where people can touch base with each other. So a few of the strategies that we have enjoyed at Blueboard, sort of building on those basic tips, are one, you know, we have a culture crew, and that culture crew prior to COVID really was focused on in-office celebration. You know, they decorated desks, they had a nacho bar for Cinco de Mayo. They put together team events where we all went out to one place together. And that stuff's not that relevant anymore. So we've actually been working with our culture crew to rewrite our charter and increase the empowerment of that group of employees who are our culture carriers, so that they can have an impact during this time. So some of the things that we've been talking about are ways that they can serve as resources to employees, having more one-on-one check-ins, and understanding employee needs more widely across the company. Increasing our sort of social impact efforts. There's a lot going on in the world that we want to have a positive role in. The culture crew can push those efforts forward. Also still owning those milestones, and I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but owning the celebration, but taking it in a different direction, making it more public, making it online, making it digital, doing things where they are more visible to the team and are generating conversation and engagement, not just, you know, all from one source to everybody else, but between each other in the whole network. The next one explains why I have a picture of these shish kebabs. We have also been adjusting timing for digital events so that we can be inclusive, given the reality that we have international time zones to take into account. So we have a team in Ukraine and we wanted to celebrate. We felt like this is really like their big win, a product achievement that they had done. And so we wanted it to be, you know, happy hour for Ukraine, which meant that it was breakfast club for US. So we all got on the line with our coffees and they got on the line with their, you know, beers, and we enjoyed a meal together, and it ended up being a really beautiful cross-cultural moment because we were like, what are you eating? What is that? And then we got to learn about this traditional dish in Ukraine. So, you know, the American team is sitting here kind of like sipping coffee, having eggs, and the Ukraine team is like, you know, gnawing on this cool dish from their local region. And so it was really great to learn about it and connect over something that we might not have otherwise if we hadn't tried to do something together. Moving on, the next one, leveraging Slack. We have, birthday celebrations or work anniversary celebrations that last a whole day, because when we kick it off, it may be, the night out, the evening, wherever it's kicked off, and it won't continue on until the morning in the next place. And so I think it's okay to recognize that a conversation on Slack can just go on for a long time. And that's fun. It feels like a long celebration. It truly feels celebratory. And then finally, this also relates to the shish kebabs, but it's important to arrange for a localized version of events. Everybody can kind of do their own thing to celebrate something, even if it's shared across the entire organization. So another example of this is that, we often might order swag, like t-shirts or something along those lines. And it's challenging to ship them to different locations where we have employees. What if we have versions for each place? So there's some team pride, so that they can say, oh, like the way that we would celebrate this is in this way, or the way that we would speak about it is in this way. So kind of relinquishing a little bit of control and saying, I've got a culture carrier over here, I've got one over here, and I've got one over here. Let's make them leads, and let's let them take the theme and run with it, so that their team is feeling connected. I think it can be challenging to think, oh, I've got to get everybody connected all the time. I have to have all 400 people on this Zoom, cheersing at once. It's kind of not as meaningful if everybody is there, but most of them aren't paying attention. So splitting up into smaller groups and encouraging the connection inside of those smaller groups, I think is really a valuable way to build connection across time zones. Great. And then a final one, you'll hear a little bit more about this from Dan, of course, but Donut has been a big part of our strategies. We love when our team gets together on these donut meetups. And during COVID, some of the things that we've done to just sort of like make it more meaningful and make it more than just like a Zoom meeting where you get on and you're like, hi, Hakimia, how are you? How's your day? Like, what's new? And, you're just like, you're hanging in there, I'm hanging in there. Like, that gets old. So we have really encouraged people to kind of explore and be creative with their donut meetups. So some of the things we've done, we've increased the cadence. They're more frequent, so you get matched more often. It's like less of a big deal if you miss one. We've also experimented with the group size, not just 2 people, maybe 3, maybe 4, join 2 pairs together and see what that conversation looks like with a new element added. And then, even more specifically, we've encouraged people to try some silly stuff, and we've gotten great results. So, we wrote in the automatic text, try learning a TikTok dance together. I won't lie, people have been doing it. We've seen some great TikTok dances. The side-by-side is excellent. We encourage people, that they don't have to do it on Zoom. They could just walk and talk. They could get on the phone and walk around their neighborhood, or if they are physically near one another and it's safe, they can mask up and, meet and safely socially distance for a real life walk. I got matched with one of our Ukrainian employees, and it turned out we both like chess. And so we had a whole month where we met up weekly and played chess games with each other because neither of us had anybody else to play chess with. So it was a special connection that was like not talking about work, but actually building that relationship. Likewise, we have employees who are cooking and eating together, sharing recipes, experimenting. And then also we have others who are learning together and, watching a little TED Talk, listening to a podcast together, doing a book club, and meeting up on a regular basis. And that was all generated out of Donut that then kind of expanded and grew. So just, getting your folks on the line to talk about something besides a meeting agenda or besides a work product really, really makes a difference. I think that's it for me. I think I'm handing it off to Dan now.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump in really quickly, Shannon. We had a few questions that came through during your last 2 slides that I thought we could address really quickly. The first was from Jamie. Hi, Jamie. First of all, so great to see you on the webinar. He was asking a little bit about the culture crew dynamic. Is this culture crew a designation or responsibility in addition to their primary role? And if so, how do you kind of ensure that there's balance between work and culture priorities?
That's such a great question, and to be honest, one that we're grappling with. We are kind of rewriting the standards for our culture crew, because for a long time it was very sort of rote and straightforward. Like the culture crew, just, you know, you have limited responsibility, you meet once a month. And now like culture crew's meeting weekly, and we're talking about more, and people are taking more responsibility. So we are actually redrafting the expectations for culture crew, and trying to, as a smaller group, lay down what we hope the group can achieve. And then we will do a call for participants. We want it to be open to everybody in the organization, but we want to be clear about what folks can expect and what kind of accountability comes with it. So it will include the amount of time you would be expected to work like on a special project in culture crew, as well as like sort of the general meetings that you would go to. It is in addition to regular work. And so that's why it's important that we feel like we're really clear on what the expectations are, and also that it's an opt-in, and people have the ability to, you know, commit for a short term and then opt back out depending on the ebb and flow of their work. You're muted, Morgan.
There we go. Similarly, there were a few questions about how you nominate, or how you maybe bring forward, or how leadership might be able to call forward people who would serve on culture committee. Maybe you can speak to a little bit about how ours is created, or how people can join, or ours isn't too formal, but I know some companies might have more formal programs of application, for example, but would love your opinion on that, Shannon, of how people actually apply or serve.
Yeah. So, you know, again, being candid, I inherited a group of people who were already the culture crew when I joined Blueboard about a year ago. And they had just opted in. They were generally early employees who expressed an interest and said, I want to do this. And then over time, as the group has changed, we've recognized that we'd like to welcome some new perspectives, some new voices, and also that we have new initiatives. And so it's time to do a call. We are developing a brief application that's just about, you know, what someone's interests are, what they hope to achieve with culture crew, and also, you know, checking in on the amount of time that they can commit. And then as a group, we will go through those. We'd like it to be as inclusive as possible. We don't want it to be something that feels like a lot of big overhead or a stress in people's lives. And so we're trying to map it out in a way that is navigable for people who are coming from all different sort of sides of the organization with different abilities of time commitment.
Awesome. Great. And last question before we hand it over to Dan, but I think this will be a really great setup, because I know we're going to be talking about kind of meeting fatigue and some themes there in the next few slides. A question from Megan was just around the notion of making sure, or how do you make sure that leadership teams don't perceive employees who might opt out of some of these culture connection events and activities as being disengaged. We know that especially with people having children at home or alternate working hours, right? People trying to be more flexible with their schedule to accommodate some of their personal responsibilities. It might not mean that everybody's free at 5 o'clock to hop on a happy hour. So would open it up to any of the panelists really on any mindset or kind of shared understanding that leadership can take around the notion of, you know, if people don't join, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Yeah, kind of tackling that notion of disengagement and detaching that from the activities that you're creating.
I love this question. Thank you to the asker of this question. Zoom fatigue is real. And we actually just had a very open conversation on our leadership team about announcing to the entire team that it's okay to opt out. It's okay to say you're tired at the end of the day. It's okay to say, I'd rather have my camera off. It's okay to say, I prefer to talk on the phone than on video. And we announced that in our all hands. We just said, everybody, like, we know that you are adjusting to a whole sort of new world order right now that involves staring at this little box all the time and hunching over. And we want to be as flexible and as inclusive as possible for people's different needs. So, you know, you don't have to be on the line every time. You don't have to feel like you're letting anybody down. We were just really explicit about it. And then the third thing is that we do try to plan events at different times. We are very comfortable planning an event during what we would call working hours, so that it doesn't exclude people who have childcare or healthcare or, just even living situation needs. Sometimes the rest of the roommates come home and you can't be on your computer, doing stuff at later hours. So we move things around. We're explicit about the expectations, and we reinforce it regularly, and we talk about it at leadership so that leaders aren't, sitting at their desk being like, I'm grumpy about this, but in fact have set the norms.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, and I alluded to it earlier, that I think it's important for you to really define what you're trying to get out of connecting and the different types of connecting. And so looking at it and you're going to hear me say this a lot, looking at it at an organization level, a team level, and an individual level. I think once you develop that consensus and that shared definition, that shared vision of what connectivity really is, I think it'll make it a little bit more easier for the resource, because I have 3 kids. I have 3 kids, a husband, working, at home with me, sharing the office. So it can be tough, but I think as long as we, create that expectation and have that clearly defined definition of what connectivity is and the outcome that we want to get out of it, it should flow very smoothly.
Great, thank you. All right, we will turn it over to Dan now. Feel free to take it away, and thanks again to the whole audience. We have over 500 people on with us, so I'm loving all of the chat and suggestions and ideas shared in the chat box. Please keep it up. Dan, feel free to take it away.
Great. Before I dive into the content on this slide, one thing to just build on a bunch of these questions and more that I think was Shannon sort of showcased it in what she shared. But I think one really important thing is that I don't think there's a single program or silver bullet for helping folks get connected. You need a whole array of offerings and happy hours and donut meetups and different things to do. And I think if you think about the way people connected in person in an office, there were many avenues in which people could build those relationships. So I would really think about building a portfolio of offerings. Some people are going to engage in a mentorship program because they want to connect over a learning opportunity. Some people are going to come to your more social things. And I think the more you have and the more people participate in them, the more acceptable it becomes not to participate in all of them. If there's just one thing that you're asking people to do, it's easy to label the non-participants as disengaged. But the reality is different people connect in different ways. So I just wanted to start off with that general comment. On this slide, I'd like to share something that we've been doing at Donut in the last few months, which is in addition to our regular Donut program, which is very social in nature, just connecting with other people on the team and staying in touch. We've started running a separate Donut channel around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the way we run that channel is we have a different learning topic every week that the whole company does. So this past one, we all read an article about the myth of meritocracy. And then Donut matches us up in trios for a 30-minute discussion on what we all took away from that topic and what we learned from it. So this is, again, it drives towards the building of connection. We're all getting to know each other better, but we're also learning as a group, and we're addressing a really important topic that's core to our values and obviously very, very timely. So this has been a really important way for us to engage, and increasingly we're thinking about what are all of the different programs and vectors in which we want, we can help people connect. To touch on another question that I saw in there, which I think somebody asked a question around, how can I run a mentorship program when my whole organization is, or lots of my organization is really junior? Folks run mentorship programs using Donut, but we also have people that position it more as a peer learning opportunity, where it's peer-to-peer learning, and you may be connecting 3 junior folks, but odds are they actually have things to teach each other. So creating those learning opportunities and positioning it as bringing something that you are expert in, that you can share with the group and teach the group. is a way to open up some of those kind of learning connection opportunities on a team that's maybe either more junior or just in general relatively at the same level, so there aren't the obvious experienced leader, up and coming leader kind of disparities. And this is something that's been, folks have been asking in the chats and in the questions. How do I get people to engage when it feels like pulling teeth to get people to engage? Folks have been mentioning there's Zoom fatigue. People are kind of exhausted of remote conversations. So I want to share something that we've been doing at Donut. Actually, I think I saw at least one person in the chat say they were experimenting with something similar as well. But this is a way in which we've been connecting with each other on a personal and human level without adding another Zoom to your calendar or another meeting to your calendar. On a regular cadence, we have had Donut posting in a dedicated channel. Our channel is called Spa Water Cooler. We used to work in a WeWork that had spa water. So this is sort of culturally significant to our company. They're called Spa Water Cooler, to create a little water cooler conversation amongst the group. And Donut will simply pose a question prompt. This example is, what's the most beautiful place you've ever been? And we got a whole stream of people posting photos and telling us about trips that they've taken. This one that you can see here from Laura is of hiking Machu Picchu. And you can see there was a whole threaded conversation off of that talking about Machu Picchu. So this has been a way for us that's a little bit more lighthearted and fun, but also really kind of low level effort to get involved in. And some people just post a reaction or post a comment, even if they aren't a primary share, and that's okay too, right? So there are a lot of different ways to get involved in this, and the bar is frankly much lower than saying, do a 30-minute conversation. If anyone is interested in this, feel free to reach out to us. We are bringing people into a beta that to be able to help other organizations do this. We have talked to lots of people that are doing it manually, where somebody posts a question, but it can be hard to sustain that momentum. All right, so I think we're handing it off now.
All right, thank you so much, Dan and Shannon, for your wisdom on connecting. Now we're on implementing, coaching questions. If you don't have the bandwidth or capacity to actually create a coaching culture, as leaders in your organization, we advise you to implement, the opportunity to build connection, implement coaching questions. So for example, which talent or strength do you possess that has the most natural connection? And some of us, and some of you who chimed in on the chat said, the strength finder. That's actually one way where you can help guide your team members through this exercise of aiming his or her strengths by asking how his natural patterns of thinking, behaviors, and feelings are. This is important because we're in a time where our thinking, feelings, and behaviors aren't not like at times our normal patterns. So really getting an understanding of where your resource is at presently, keeping them present and mindful. I think that question creates that space for that. Number two, what's the specific task or goal that feels unmanageable or unreachable? So for these resources who feel disconnected, who aren't engaged, they might not necessarily be comfortable saying, you know what, I feel like this is unmanageable or unreachable. This shows your concern. And this gives an opportunity, again, for that team member to clarify and use concrete words and identify specific tasks that feel unmanageable, giving the space for people to really voice their opinions and their thoughts. But it also helps you as the leader identify potential triggers for that resource so that you're not continuing to add additional pressure to the resource as it relates to, working remotely. And it helps the resource identify the specific goals that they truly want, that that keeps them in a space of thriving instead of anxiety. We have a lot of that going on right now because the pressure is on. Some individuals are working multiple roles. Others may not necessarily have the projects or opportunities they want. So really keeping, you know, that line of communication open and minimizing those instances where anxiety may arise. And lastly, you know, what helps you feel connected to others? We have to stop complicating connection. That's very important, okay? Offering up those opportunities to really build rapport and build trust is as simple as asking, how can we connect better? Taking that time to really, and it may make you feel, you know, uncomfortable, but it's really keeping your mindset on the end goal, which is to continue to keep your team engaged, connected, and overall grow the organization.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Hakimia, for walking through that. Would love to pause just if any of the other speakers wanted to build on that. Otherwise, we have a few questions that we can dive into that have come through. Okay, perfect. And what I wanted to do just on the chat to Dan's content previously, a lot of people have been sharing some really interesting ideas for the question of the day that I thought would be nice to call out for some of them that were shared just with the panelists. Love the idea of calling the channel for the grouping flash mob that came from Deja. They're sharing show us your coffee mug, desert island discs, things along those lines. Mark, for example, is doing improv games, which is fun as well. So grab an object and have it speak about your world for 30 seconds, which is pretty funny as well. So just wanted to share out a few of those ideas since there's been a lot of commentary around the question of the day or the opportunity to use Slack in a way that's less video focused, of course, and just more of a water cooler destination for people to connect. Great. All right, let's jump forward. So our last section, as we have about 10 more minutes together, is this notion of, we've shared a lot of great ideas today. Now, how do you think about bringing those to life? And as we were collecting registrations for the event, a lot of people were asking, of course, you know, how do you implement some of these ideas on a lower budget, things along those lines. It might be as you're looking at your overall budget, there's a lot of out of or in office perks and initiatives that you were investing in that no longer apply. And those might actually be budgets that you can open up to new types of opportunities to build connections in this remote world, or to think through programs that might be better adapted to a sheltered or distanced working remote environment. So we have 3 ideas that we're going to walk through. We'll start with Shannon to talk about how you can transition events and gatherings into our new normal.
Sure. Yeah. So I was actually just answering a question in the Q&A about this. So I'm happy to speak to it right here too. So like at Blueboard, we often have regular events where we get together. So we had a budget for monthly events. We also had like a summer picnic budget and then like a big retreat budget. Those things aren't happening. So we can reallocate a little bit. We can spend a little bit more to create these individual experiences that our team can share, that they're so excited about, but that aren't, you know, a group gathering in one place physically. So a few examples are, you know, instead of decorating a desk or, you know, buying a cake and putting it in the you know, team kitchen, you can mark important milestones with a virtual experience or by mailing a gift or something thoughtful. So like a few examples, we have an employee who just recently crossed their workiversary, and normally we probably would have, you know, like had cookies or something like that in the office. But I know that he's home with his 4 kids right now. And so we sent them all the supplies to have a game night, a bunch of different games and some snacks and like a hat for the winner. So just something that will like lead to a memorable experience for that family to mark the employee's special day. Other, you know, potential examples are Our founders love to make and record little videos and send those out to the team. So just a personalized video message. It's free. You can record it on your phone. You can record it on your computer and send that over. I know that I got like a hilariously sweet and awkward recording of my colleagues singing happy birthday to me over Zoom because I was out of the office on my birthday, and it was just adorable. It feels special. Otherwise, leveraging things that you can buy for your employees online that will sort of help them, subscription to something like Skillshare or Masterclass, or an opportunity to like just attend a one-time digital event online. Just using the funds that you had for events and gatherings to transition them over to employees who are having these like sort of individual and more isolated experiences, but trying to do things that they can maybe take a picture of and tell others about. The other one I have here in the middle is, using spot bonuses. And this is similar, that using those funds that we might have previously been running our big events with, it's important to acknowledge that employees are going above and beyond now. They're wiped out. Some of them are essential workers who are, really serving their communities and assisting a ton of people in a way that really deserves recognition. And so we have extended ourselves. We typically just do a set number of quarterly rewards that are based on our values. And we realized that we have some people who deserve to be recognized beyond the like sort of regular set that we would have done. And so we developed some new rewards, and those spot bonuses acknowledged how hard it can be to work in this particular environment. So we're Blueboard, so we do love to use our product internally. And so we give Blueboard rewards that are related to our values and related to going above and beyond. And I think those feel really special right now, and feel just like such a great way to kind of move our budgets around and acknowledge that in this time when people are doing a great job, it feels so good to know the company notices. I think Hakimia, you're next up.
All right, so for those of you who would typically hire a in-person speaker, into your L&D programs, think of Bravely. Think of providing that on-demand coaching for those real-time moments, relevant moments that employee needs to get over the hump, to remove any roadblocks, or to even, advance leadership and maximize their greatest potential. Right now, as Bravely, coaching is also offered to the staff, but to organizations, we could definitely, come in and shift the roles and responsibility from HR to us and provide more of an objective view, to your staffs as it relates to some of the themes that they experience or circumstances that they experience on a day-to-day. Because the reality is, if your employee feels disengaged, they may not necessarily feel comfortable with bringing their matters of the heart to you or your HR team. So opening up the door to have a third party come in and really provide dialogue circles, which are spaces where your employees come in. We have a topical theme, and we allow that space for safe conversation, transparency, vulnerability, but also that one-on-one coaching as well, so that we can tackle the need for that person in that specific time. Who's next, Morgan?
Perfect. I was on mute.
Oh.
So, that's perfect. Thank you for running through those. There's so many ways that you can think about adapting your budgets. These are just a few, and we'll actually have a blog prepared next week, so we'll be able to link to that in the recap for everyone if you want some additional ideas. I know we're getting close to time. I wanted to do a really quick speaker overview or sponsor overview before we let everyone drop. And Alex has also posted the SHRM code into the chat. That's 20KM5HX. So feel free to grab that from the chat. And if you need that one-on-one, please feel free to reach out to our team. Unfortunately, Portia just asked, are there HRCI credits? Unfortunately not, we're just focused on SHRM today, but appreciate you reaching out. I'm going to run a short poll. We've learned a lot about Bravely, Donut, and Blueboard today. This is an opportunity for everyone on the line to raise a hand to connect with our sponsors after the event. You'll see that running on screen now. Feel free, Hakimia, to take it away and give us a quick overview about Bravely.
All right, yes, like I said, on demand, very easy when it comes to client interface. The client will log on to our app, will state their reasoning for connecting with Bravely, and then we'll get connected to a available coach. If they, chooses, if they want to connect with someone who is connected culturally, they also have that option as well. And so through that process, it gives them, the freedom to really share themselves without fear of really feeling like there may be some type of retaliation. So we make the process easy, very seamless, and we welcome all to join.
Wonderful, thank you. And then quickly, just for those who have not yet met Blueboard, we are all about meaningful recognition and rewards that help connect employees together by giving them the gift of an experience. So unlike cash or gift cards, doing something in home, like maybe a watercolor painting class or building science kit project with your children, all the way to out in the world adventures as people feel safe, maybe hitting the road on an RV to tour some national parks, or we're learning how to surf, for example, are great opportunities to capture photos, videos, awesome memories, and share those out with your teammates on tools like Slack or other ways to digitally connect. So in this time where we're all distanced, please think of Blueboard for any of your programs, whether that's Spot, as Shannon mentioned, anniversary awards, or even sales incentives or President's Club. If you're looking for opportunities for employees to challenge your comfort zones, thirst for adventure is very high right now as well. And also, again, the opportunity to really share and connect after they complete those experiences. So that is Blueboard. I'll pass it over to Dan.
Great, thank you. So as I mentioned before, our mission is to create human connection within organizations that leads to camaraderie, collaboration, and community. We do that with a Slack integration that allows you to set up a whole number of different connection programs that will introduce people right in Slack. In this screenshot, you'll see we've opened up a direct message between Jack and Susie, who have opted into a Coffee Buddies program. Increasingly, as folks have gone remote, we've seen people creating many different donut channels for different purposes. So you might have a DEI donut channel, a Coffee Buddies donut channel, a mentorship one. The link on the next slide has a page on our website that will highlight a whole range of different programs you can run with Donut. And we have been actually cataloging things that organizations do with Donut so that it's really easy for you to get up and running in less than 5 minutes.
Wonderful. Thanks for everyone again, and to all our sponsors who brought this amazing community together. As we wrap up, we'll just go through some key takeaways. And again, the SHRM code is on screen and in the chat as you need it, 20KM5HX. All right, so as we wrap up, we'd love to hear from our amazing group of panelists. We'll start with you, Hakimia. What's one thing that you want the audience to walk away with today?
One thing that I want you guys to walk away with is, like I stated earlier, don't make connecting complicated. Offer the space for you guys to create that shared vision on what connection looks like, and just do it.
I love.
Great, let's go down the line. Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Perfect,
sure.
Shannon's right.
I love what Hakimia said, and I really echo that. Don't feel like you have to break yourself to and reinvent the wheel here. That's why the program ideas that I am suggesting, I'm really trying to remove barriers to launching one of those. You don't have to map it all out. It doesn't have to be perfect. There doesn't need to be a manual and a guide, and like everybody has to show up at the exact same place at the exact same time every week. Doing something is what matters. And whether that's as simple as asking someone who you don't talk to very often, how are you? How are things going? Like, I saw this and I'd love to talk with you about it. Or whether it's, really getting a little program off the ground, it's just taking a step forward that matters and that gets people talking and connecting with each other.
Awesome. Well, I'll build on those two and agree with them, and also say that we offered a lot of different ideas for a lot of different things to do. Every organization is different in terms of culture, size, the challenges you're facing. So I think a lot of these different programs are easy to get off. They're pretty quick to get off the ground. So try what feels right. And, you know, not everything is going to work. We're all learning in this new environment. But I think with all these suggestions, there's probably something that fits most organizations.
Wonderful. Thank you all three for that wrap up. And we have spent a little bit more time than planned, so we will exit here. A huge thank you again to our sponsor partners, Alex and Lisa, for bringing this great group together with me. Thank you, Hakimia, Shannon, and Dan, and to the over 500 of you who joined today. Thanks for all the collaboration and idea sharing. What we love is also learning from you. So it was so great to see the chat lighting up today. We have a few events coming up, including some virtual events that we're very excited about. And please continue to check out resources from Donut and Bravely as well, based on the links on screen. We'll see you all very soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you are. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.